Hi, it's me, your host of the Unexpected Detour. Where in life detours are inevitable. Today, I have a question. How many of you really like your name? And I'm being very serious about that question. How many of you really like your name? Not because you've had it all your life, not because you've gotten used to hearing it, but because you genuinely like it. Have you ever stopped and wondered why you were given that name? Were you named after a parent, a grandparent, a family friend? Does your name have a meaning? Does it carry a story? You know, I sit around and I think about things. Sometimes I think about life. Sometimes I think about people. And sometimes I think about things most people probably wouldn't stop to consider. The other day, I found myself thinking about names and the significance of a name. What is a name anyway? Is it simply a collection of letters? A word written on a birth certificate? A signature at the bottom of a document? Or is it something more? Much more. I started thinking about my own name. Then I started thinking about the names of people I love: my mother, my son, my family, my friends. And then, of course, I thought about my dog Mocha. Now, Mocha didn't choose her name. When I adopted her, she had another name. Yet today, when I call her, she comes running. She responds. She knows that means her name. Or at least I'd like to think she does. And that made me wonder how much of our identity is connected to a name. Because before anyone knew our personality, before anyone knew our dreams, before anyone knew our struggles, they knew our name. For many of us, our names were given with hope, given with love, given with intention. Some of us were named after relatives. Some were named after people our parents admired. Some names were passed down from one generation to the next. And before we ever spoke our first words, those names were already carrying history. A name can carry legacy. A name can carry culture. A name can carry pride. A name can carry pain. Some people hear their name and immediately think about family. Others hear their name and remember difficult moments. There are people who spent years correcting the pronunciation of their name. And there are others who stopped correcting people altogether. Not because they didn't care, but because they became tired. Tired of explaining, tired of correcting, tired of feeling different. Some people shortened their names to fit in. Some changed their names after marriage, some after divorce, some after discovering a new path in life, and some spent years learning how to love the very name they were given. History teaches us something important about names. There was a time when people were stripped of their names, not by accident, but by design. People taking away person's name was often an attempt to take away their identity, their culture, their ancestry, their connection to where they came from. Yet, despite everything, stories survived, families survived, legacies survived, and names survived. Generation after generation, story after story. And because, and perhaps, that's why names still matter. Because every time someone says your name, there is recognition, there is acknowledgement, there's a reminder that you are here, that you matter, that your life has value. But somewhere along the journey, life starts giving us labels. labels we never asked for: cancer patient, addict, failure, rejection, broken, too old, too young, not enough. And before we know it, those labels become louder than our name. But those labels are not who we are. They may describe something we've experienced, but they do not define us. Because beneath every label is still a person with a name, a person with a story, a person with a purpose. And maybe that's why so many of us spend years searching for ourselves. Not because we're lost who we are, but because life has buried us beneath expectations, disappointments, heartbreak, fear, pain, and survival. Maybe healing begins when we remember who we were before the labels. Remember who God created us to be. Remember that our worth was never determined by our mistakes. Remember that our value was never tied to what happened to us. Maybe healing begins when we stop introducing ourselves through our wounds and start embracing the person beneath them, the person who has always been there, the person attached to that name. So today, I leave you with a few questions. Do you like your name? Hmm. Do you know what it means? Do you know why it was given to you? And what story does your name carry? Because every name carries a story. Every story carries a purpose. And every life leaves a legacy. Thank you for joining me on the Unexpected Detour, wherein life detours are inevitable. And every name carries a story. Every story carries a purpose, and your name has a meaning. Until next time, keep walking and remember, you matter.